We've been upgrading everything in Minecraft to create the ultimate survival world. Setting out to create the ultimate Minecraft survival experience, we've been transforming every major structure and biome in the game, throwing in a ton of Easter eggs and quests, all in a 16 million block map. And we've even been giving Minecraft its very own backstory. Here on the TrixyBlox channel, we're going to follow the epic adventures of the USW in a series of mini-movies, tackling each biome in turn. Today, our adventures take us to the jungle biome, where we'll discover the immense power of the sacred Kamer Mountains, encounter some familiar faces, witness epic battles, come face to face with some terrifying creatures, and even behold the calamitous elemental storm. But before we start, I've noticed that only 16% of you guys watching are actually subscribed. Our block sum has grown by about 23,000 since the last episode. If we make an extra push this time, we could hit that 100k milestone with this video if you just hit the subscribe button below, which would also mean my severe lack of sleep would be worth it. Your support never fails to amaze me, and you guys have smashed every single like goal so far with ease. So to let me know you're still enjoying the series, let's aim for 20,000 likes this time. I'm trying to give you guys a bit more of a challenge here, but I have faith you'll beat this anyway. Now, these videos can be watched individually, but to understand the full story, you should really catch up on all our Ultimate Survival World content, including the first 2 chapters of this movie series, and of course the insane building updates on the TrixyBlox channel. He's just posted the Caves episode, so be sure to check it out after this video. An ancient, deep dark city meets vast lush caves, all sprinkled with some epic dwarven elements and key lore for you guys. You don't want to miss this one. And the moment you've been waiting for, adventuring back into the ultimate survival world. As I always say, nothing is meant to be accurate to real life, so let's take a break from the world and escape with some storytelling. Just sit back, grab yourself some popcorn, and get ready for the next mini-movie of the ultimate survival world. The jungle biome is home to many curious mysteries and chilling secrets, most notably the sacred Kamer Mountains. The Kamer Mountains are said to possess many mysterious qualities, and the events that unravelled between their peaks lie at the very heart of the jungle's story. The tribes of the jungle believed that the most powerful tribe should inhabit the Kamer Mountains, reaping its magical benefits and protections, and ruling over the jungle biome. But the real question was, which of the jungle's 3 tribes deserve this great honour?
Choose your fighter. In the red corner, we've got the fearsome Fern tribe. Representing the green corner, it's the righteous Yanoa tribe. And in the blue corner, give it up for the nimble Leaf tribe.
This is so stupid.
Needless to say, this difficult decision led to a great conflict between the tribes, and eventually the tribal war of Kamer erupted across the biome. After countless battles, many ambushes, and even more casualties, the Yanoa tribe was victorious. Props to you if you voted for the green corner. The remaining members of the Fern and Leaf tribes fled into the wilderness, inhabiting its outskirts. Perhaps they will pop up later in this story. And with one war finished, and the construction of the Yanoa tribe's ancient jungle city commencing, the fight was of course not over. It couldn't be that easy. What followed was the Interbiome War, which we covered in the Desert chapter. The southern waters of the USW fell into conflict, with the desert and jungle warring over the valuable area. After further years of conflict, you may remember that the people of the desert, jungle, and mesa laid down their weapons and made peace agreements, later leading to stronger interbiome relations. In fact, the interbiome mining network was forged, an intricate web of tunnels connecting the biomes, strengthening their collective resources and culminating in a hub below the USW's surface. How exactly did this happen? It seems a little far-fetched, right? Well, the creation of this network was actually sparked by the Yanoa tribe and its earlier allegiance with the USW's dwarves. We will of course turn to these mysterious dwarves in a later chapter, but as far as the jungle story goes, they had a strong relationship with the dwarves, who were fundamental to the creation of the Interbiome mining network, as the 4th member of the alliance and in fact the host of the network's hub. I can't wait to explore the dwarves' tale and unravel the mysteries behind this entire race of people who concealed themselves from those on the surface for so long. And with all the warring finally over, for now at least, the Yanoa tribe were able to focus on building their city, establishing an elaborate society built around the sacred Kamer Mountains. They built their own mines and a plethora of functional buildings as their culture grew and prospered in the Kamer Mountains. Besides the functionality, and of course the beautiful aesthetic of this city, The Yanoa tribe incorporated some even more extraordinary eye-catching elements, which really illustrate the depth of their fascinating culture. The first of these eye-catching elements is the Maze of the Jaguar, which guards the entrance to the ancient jungle city. The symbol of the jaguar was very special to the Yanoa tribe, but why? When the tribe first emerged, they were vulnerable to the elements and creatures of the jungle. They had not built the society and infrastructure you see today, and they were still learning how to protect themselves. The jungle, however, waited for no one. It was home to all manner of terrifying, merciless creatures, including its giant arachnids. These spiders were a plague on the jungle, draining it of all other life that dared to venture too deep into the wilderness. Unprotected from these spiders, and unaware of how to ward them off, the Yanoa tribe was vulnerable, as were the other tribes of the jungle. One day, the spiders discovered the tribe, launching a vicious attack. People were terrified and were not properly equipped to face such a threat. When all hope seemed lost, a jaguar sprung forth from the wilderness. It leapt in between the tribe and the spiders, letting out a powerful roar. The spiders scattered, unable to take on the power of the jaguar. The people were saved that day, but it was rumoured that a giant egg lay deep within the jungle, seemingly biding its time for an opportunity to strike. The Yanoa tribe narrowly escaped this time, but something tells me far worse lurks in the undergrowth. And of course, from that day forward, the jaguar was hailed as the hero of the jungle, becoming a symbol for power, bravery, and foresight. Had the jaguar not foreseen the attack and protected the tribe that day, all would have been lost, so it is a very important symbol to the tribe. To honour the jaguar, the tribe built 2 large jaguar statues to guard the entrance to their city, protecting it from harm's way. The jaguars also overlooked an enchanted maze, which is the only way into the city. The 2 statues watch over the entrance, empowering the brave to tackle the enchanted maze beneath them, with only the worthy triumphing and gaining entrance to the city. The maze is said to be enchanted by the spirit of the jaguar, which drives the unworthy insane, trapped forever within the walls of the labyrinth. Those who seek entrance to the city with no ill will would succeed in their path, but the Kama Mountains are a mysterious place, and the real temptation lies beyond the maze itself. Some only reveal their inner truth when temptation lies before them, but perhaps the unravelling of this maxim is best left to later chapters, following explorers venturing to the jungle from other biomes. Anyway, you may have also noticed the first of 4 elemental totems lying at the centre of this maze. This totem is part of the Yanoa tribe's most important ritual, so important in fact that its integrity was essential for the city to survive. If the ritual were to be tainted, chaos would ensue and the city would be cursed. Something tells me there's a reason why the city was left abandoned, but we shall explore the elemental totems a little later in this chapter. To harness the power of the Kama Mountains and to strengthen the city's spiritual connection to them, the tribe built this magnificent temple. It was used in many of their rituals and ceremonies, including the pilgrimage of the elemental totems, which we will of course delve into later. It contains several sacred statues representing the tribe's previous leaders, and includes a tomb for the burial of future leaders, allowing them to rest together, eternally bonded to the heart of the city to which they contributed. It is said that the disturbance of these sacred statues would lead to a devastating spate of bad luck for the disturber. I wonder if any of our adventurers in later chapters will find themselves in trouble with the leader's spirits. Exploring the temple sure looks tempting. I have a feeling we haven't heard the last of it just yet. Now of course, you will remember YARIMA from the desert chapter. Her progressive relationship with her sim and her crucial involvement in the liberation of the Sandstone village certainly goes down in USW history. But her story doesn't end there. YARIMA had always had a flair for adventure ever since she was a little girl. Her father was the king of the jungle and had always taught her the value of kindness and empathy. This moral code had allowed the king to lead the tribe to amicable relations with other biomes, becoming the key to the inter-biome mining network. He only wished that his ancestors could have built the same relations with the other tribes of the jungle. These tribes, however, remained lost to the wilderness. It was not known whether they had survived after the tribal war of Kama, but YARIMA, the king's daughter, held out hope. YARIMA cared much about the plight of others, as you may remember from the desert chapter. This time, YARIMA felt an even greater duty to unite the tribes of the jungle, to share the Kama Mountains with them and prosper together as one, protected from the creatures of the jungle. Her father agreed with this sentiment, but he was not so well versed in adventure, unlike his daughter, and was convinced the other tribes had perished. Full of hope, YARIMA set out on a quest to find the other tribes, not truly knowing what dangers could lie ahead, but she was determined to do what was right. She journeyed through the jungle in search of the fern and leaf tribes, venturing deeper and deeper into the wilderness, further and further away from the protection of the Kama Mountains. The jungle was growing darker, but YARIMA was determined to keep searching before setting up camp. She began to get the feeling that she was being watched, and the realisation crept over her. She wasn't alone. Before she could even think to react, she heard a loud rumble from the undergrowth and a gigantic spider crawled out onto the jungle floor. YARIMA stumbled backwards, she turned to flee, and the giant spider chased after her. Trying not to look back, YARIMA sprinted through the trees as fast as her feet could carry her, as the terrifying monster hissed and spat, following closely behind. Realising that she was surrounded by an entire tribe of spiders, the more she looked, the more she could see, and then a horrifying realisation crept over her. The Fern tribe had been corrupted by the spiders. She had found the remaining members of the tribe, but they were changed. They rode on the back of spiders, their flesh no longer on their bones, seemingly entranced by the giant spider. And then suddenly, the spider let out a high-pitched screech. YARIMA span around to see the spider shrieking out in anger, with an arrow lodged in its eye. But who on earth shot the arrow? YARIMA looked to the shadows, and from behind a tree, a figure began to emerge. She backed up in fear. After what she had just seen, she didn't know what to expect next. The figure stepped into the light, and YARIMA let out a huge sigh of relief. It was a sim! The pair embraced one another before quickly turning to face the enormous beast before them. If they had any chance of escaping this terrifying creature, they'd have to do it together. The pair fought off the smaller spiders one by one, clambering across the terrain in desperation to keep their distance. They climbed up into the treetops to weaken the giant beast with arrows, before leaping down to launch the finishing blow together. And with the spider tribe defeated, YARIMA and Aasim had overcome yet another huge threat to the USW. YARIMA had saved Aasim and the Sandstone Village from a terrible fate in the desert chapter, and he returned the favour by coming to YARIMA's aid as soon as he caught word that she'd ventured into the jungle alone. They really are the ultimate duo. So, with the giant spider vanquished, the biome appeared to be safe again. But the threat of the spiders remained, and they were not the only threat. Danger existed far closer to YARIMA's home than she even knew. For now, she was safe, and the pair returned to the Kama Mountains together, with Aasim heading back to the desert via the Interbiome mining network. Now, if you've had your listening ears on, you may remember the elemental totem, which lives in the centre of the maze of the Jaguar. Well, as you may have gathered, the elemental protector totems were an essential part of the city's growth and survival. Living in the mysterious Kama Mountains comes with its perks, even extending the lifespan of its inhabitants. But it also has its pitfalls. The powers of the mountains had to be controlled and stabilised, otherwise the city would fall into chaos and the elements would unleash their wrath between the mountain peaks. To calm the elements, the tribe built 4 sacred totems, at which they would leave tributes each year. These totems represented the 4 elements: earth, wind, fire, and water. Each totem would protect the city from the wrath of each element. For instance, this earth totem protected the land from infertility and natural disaster. Every year, a group of the city's people would undertake a perilous pilgrimage across the vast jungle landscape, searching for these 4 elemental protector totems. At each totem, they would leave valuable offerings and perform rituals to preserve the power of the sacred elements, which were essential for the city's survival. After finding earth, wind, fire, and water, the pilgrimage would finish at the temple, and those who succeeded were celebrated in a grand ceremony as saviours of the city and were provided with many valuable benefits for the next year. One year, a desperate thief took on the pilgrimage, hoping that it would change her life for the better. She stole her totem offerings from her fellow people, hoping that she would be celebrated upon her return and given a comfortable life for the next year. Unfortunately, her deception tainted the rituals, and the protection provided by the totems for centuries was tarnished. The elements were angered, and the Kamer Mountains were no longer merciful to the Yanoa tribe. Eventually, the city dwellers could find no fertile land. Their water was contaminated. And even their hunting ventures always seemed to end in fatalities. The elements had completely turned against them, and the land was cursed. Eventually, the protection of the totems fell away. The elements grew out of control, and a great calamitous storm hit the mountains. The city fell into chaos, and the tribesfolk desperately attempted to flee. YARIMA and the king gathered as many of their people as possible, doing all they could to get them out of the city and into safety. Many of the city's people were taken by the storm, with a small group successful in their escape, seeking refuge away from the Kamer Mountains and the elemental curse. YARIMA and the king were the last to attempt their escape, making a run for the bridge and the maze of the Jaguar. As they tried to cross the bridge, a huge bolt of lightning struck, and the jungle fell silent. The survivors of the elemental curse regrouped in the jungle, devastated by the destruction of the storm and concerned about the whereabouts of YARIMA and the king. They'd been missing for days, and the jungle's reign had not once desisted. As the days drew on, the tribe's morale sunk lower and lower. The rain poured endlessly, and the sky remained gloomy as ever. The tribe were beginning to lose hope, and it seemed that their beloved leaders had been lost to the storm. A few days later, the tribe had something approaching over a nearby hill. And to their delight, it was YARIMA. YARIMA had returned. The skies turned bright, as did the tribe's faces, and they embraced one another. This moment was bittersweet for YARIMA. She was overjoyed to be reunited with the last of her people, but she had to deliver some tragic news. The king of the jungle, YARIMA's father, was dead. She explained to the tribe that the merciless storm had targeted him with a bolt of lightning, and she could not bear to leave him on the bridge. She carried her father into the jungle temple to allow him to rest in peace alongside the statues of the tribe's past leaders. She buried him in the tomb, setting up a plethora of booby traps to protect his crypt from thieves. She spent days, and all that remained of her energy, doing all she could to ensure her father could be at peace. The tribe was devastated by the news, although they held out hope of returning to their city and honouring their king with a ceremony in the temple. YARIMA warned the tribe that they could not return. The land was still cursed, and it now belonged to the elements. Even the city's fire braziers remained lit, roaring more ferociously than ever before. The elements retained control of the land, and they were still angered by the tainted ritual. YARIMA and her tribe were deeply hurt by the series of events that were triggered by the storm, but they gradually restored their hope. The tribe placed their faith in YARIMA, declaring her their queen. She was determined to rebuild her tribe to its former glory, following in her father's footsteps and creating a new village for her people to prosper in. Previously, the tribes of the jungle lived in territorial conflict with one another. As you may remember, the Fern tribe was lost to the corruption of the spiders, but there was hope that the Leaf tribe remained, and YARIMA reached out to them. Remembering how the War of Kamer tore their ancestors' lives apart, the tribes agreed to live in harmony, forming the Atakra tribe. Too many lives had been lost and the people had grown tired of living in fear. After seeing what had happened to the Fern tribe, YARIMA refused to leave the Leaf tribe to the same fate. So they created a new community, which has thrived ever since in the form of this charming jungle village. The tribe's best archer finally accomplished his dream of opening up his very own shooting range. And if you remember from the TrixyBlox video on this build, he does give the kids free archery lessons on Wednesdays. And of course, the voodoo doctor wanders about the village in his mysterious cart, renowned for his 5-star Uber Eats rated herbal tea. What more could the Atakra tribe need? They also built several smaller temples to honour the temple of the city, allowing the tribe to once again perform rituals and protecting the land from being overrun with spiders. However, in spite of this, it seemed that a new threat might be looming at the jungle's border. A group from the Darkwood Forest entered the jungle, pillaging one of the temples, destroying the trees in the area and setting up a camp. The Atakra tribe believe that the spirit of the jungle is encapsulated in the trees. The trees are very important to them. They believe that if you destroy a tree without replanting another, the jungle's giant spiders gain strength and multiply, threatening the safety of the tribe and potentially the entire USW. With the threat of these trespassers looming, the Atakra tribe brood over why they are suddenly invading their lands. The reason is far more tragic than they could imagine. and the story of these desperate exiles will be unravelled in the Dark Forest chapter. And so, the Jungles chapter may be drawing to a close, but its story doesn't quite end there. The ancient jungle city lies abandoned in the Kamer Mountains, and it seems rather unlikely that it remains untouched. So what adventure awaits in the next chapter? And so, we have reached the end of the third chapter of our USW story. Let's make sure we hit that 20k like goal, and maybe we can even grow to 100k subscribers before the next chapter. I promise I'll do something cool if we do. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts and predictions below. I reply to virtually every comment. Seriously, test me. Also, be sure to check out my Instagram, the Discord server, and of course our merchandise, all of which can be found via the links in the description. Thank you so much for the love and support, guys. And of course, a big thank you to all these lovely people who have helped with this episode. Please be sure to show them some love too. And that's me done for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! I'm a goofy goodbye, yeah. You're a goofy goodbye, yeah. We're goofy goodbyes, yeah. Goofy goodbyes, yeah. We're all goofy.